We're going to talk about episode 7 of Ahsoka. Who is Ahsoka? Why does she matter? And why do we care? Alan, give us your review and your take on episode 7.
Oh man, the problem with covering the series is trying to come up with new things to say each week and not repeat the old stuff. Because like Kenobi, the movie, the show started bad. We're 7 episodes in, and it hasn't improved at all. So my walk away from this one is that there's just not a lot of weight behind anything
Right.
in this. Scenes should mean something. It should be more than just people emoting all over the place. It should say something about the story. Should say something about something bigger than the story itself. Should say something about these characters and why they are important. And the classic for me is this whole Ezra thing. Last week, Sabine met Ezra and they hugged, and that was kind of the weight of that scene. You never got the sense that they had been separated by the Great War. That all the events of the original Star Wars movie took place between when Sabine last saw Ezra, and they're finally back together. And it's like, you would think there'd be some crying. I don't know, a tighter hug, maybe some kissing. I don't know the relationship. No context. I have no context. And then the same thing happens with Ahsoka here. And it's like the thing that puzzles me is Thrawn. It was Ahsoka's here. Well, it's meant to be. I kind of get the fact that maybe Thrawn is a Calvinist, believing that all events were meant to happen, and that
Right.
But let's face it, I've seen Christian movies handle Calvinism better than Ahsoka here.
Well,
So,
ultimately, this whole episode is just chase scenes, right?
yep, yeah. I mean, look, Grace Randolph. I agree with her. This episode was filler because not much happened. It was, if you take out all the filler of this series, you'd have a pretty good movie, or halfway decent movie.
Oh, at least maybe a watchable film.
Yeah,
Make some changes.
yeah. Let's put it that way. One comment I put it on. I X'd it last night, but it was even Ezra realizes that lightsabers are useless. I'll go back to what I've always said about this series is that, or what I say about Disney Star Wars, is it's not for us anymore. I think I'm very happy just to take my old Star Wars, and and just make it that, and have to realize that Star Wars has moved on from me. It's not for me. It's for this new generation. Because I think if I were going back to Mr. Newton's comments, it's kind of like Star Wars is my ex-wife and married a richer, more handsome person than myself. And how much longer can I just sit and wallow and be angry at my ex-wife and her new husband? And that's kind of where I'm getting to the point with Star Wars right now.
Wow, that was very personally revealing, Alan. But like,
I'm still married to my first wife. So
okay, all right. Well, let's a couple things I want to address before we get to specifics about events in this episode. One, I think the reason someone mentioned earlier, and there are a lot of people attacking. There are a lot of people attacking those who don't like the show. Okay, they didn't come after people over Boba Fett or Obi-Wan, which were awful shows, but definitely coming after people who dislike Ahsoka. I think that different opinions about a thing can coexist, meaning you shouldn't allow my opinion to yuck your yum. You just, that's fine. But I really believe that the reason there so many people participate in a discussion of the death of Star Wars. We had our critics court, which went on probably almost too long, went on almost 3 months. It went on for 3 months, actually, our critics court trial on Star Wars. And I feel like we should have waited and included Ahsoka. But the reason I believe all of this is resonating with people, and what I mean is not the show Ahsoka, the conversation surrounding the death of Star Wars, resonates with people because, in a way, it's a form of therapy. I believe this is a form of therapy, not just for myself, but for a lot of people that feel that Star Wars did not live up to their expectations, whether it's, you know, the Star Wars prequels, whether it's the Star Wars sequel trilogy from Disney, whether it's the Star Wars television shows. And the bottom line, I believe, is Star Wars was never meant to be television. I think that Star Trek makes great episodic television, morality tales about our time, but through the lens of science fiction. So it's not directly saying something, it's a commentary that doesn't force a certain point of view. It allows you to say, huh, that's worth thinking about. I'll come to my own conclusion. That's what Star Trek does well, television. Star Wars is epic, an epic fable centered on a heroic character, surrounded by many to help that character, whether it be Luke, whether it be Anakin. I mean, in a way, I would love to see someone recut the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy, intercut them, and call it the Godfather 2 cut. So you mirror the same moments where Anakin and Luke had choices to make and how each made different decisions. Could be an interesting thing. You could even include music from The Godfather, whatever. Anyways, I think that in some way, discussions of Star Wars is a form of therapy because we didn't get what we wanted. Now, that doesn't mean that the people who watched every episode of Rebels and every episode of Clone Wars can't enjoy it. And I'm happy for them. But my opinion doesn't negate your opinion and vice versa. And if we're going to be able to have productive discussions, we should respect each other's opinions. You see the way that Alan and I interact. I mean, look, I do get mad at Alan sometimes. Well, probably actually every episode I get mad at Alan for something. But it's always something stupid, right? Like it's always, and we know we work with each other enough. We're like, we're goofing on each other, or there's like some dumb meme or video. But this, let's actually break it down and start going through the show. So this is why I feel that negative conversations surrounding Star Wars resonate, because there's a generation that in their mind's eye had a Star Wars that they wanted to see when they were kids. And not just myself who saw it in first run, but other kids who grew up watching Star Wars, whether it be in second run at the theaters or VHS tapes or DVDs or on television, however you saw it for the first time. Most people remember the first time they saw Star Wars. Everyone imagined what new Star Wars adventures would be like. And what would it be like if Han, Luke, and Leia were in a new series of movies together? And we finally got to see that, and it was a colossal disappointment. It's really difficult. That's why I think the trial went the way that it did. Is it's difficult to defend the Disney Star Wars sequels. However, and just playing devil's advocate, I believe that the fans of Rebels and Clone Wars, their love for the Ahsoka series is valid. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And I actually think that you can't really criticize the actors in this show. I think the actors are very good. I think the weakness in the show ultimately comes down to the writing. What do you talk? Why do you smile?
I was looking at. I keep every time I see Ezra, I'm thinking, oh, it's Jesus.
He does look like Jesus from one of those
especially from The Chosen. No, right. The only thing I'll say this: it's not like we didn't talk like this when Phantom Menace came out. You know, we were having these same conversations. It was like, we talked about how what we thought the prequels would look like, and what George Lucas thought the prequels looked like were vastly different. And the division was just as great. I would say that there are probably more people who hated the prequels than liked it, but there was still a strong contingent out there that liked it. And I will say, as I like the prequels, I loved Phantom Menace, and I think Attack of the Clones is a hot piece of garbage. But that was the thing, is we can have these conversations. Well, we don't have to build a divide.
I'll debate you on this on a couple things. One, episode 1 wasn't what we wanted it to be. It was and it had a weak performance. I'm sorry, by Jake Lloyd, who was miscast. I'm sorry, he was miscast.
I will agree with you. Jake Lloyd was miscast. I've
Miscast.
seen the other actors' screen tests, and they were light years better than Jake Lloyd.
Right. The second thing is the other weakness of that film was I don't hate. I'm not a Jar Jar hater. I don't hate Jar Jar. There is only one problem with Jar Jar: screen time. Every Star Wars movie has something comic relief. Every Star Wars movie has something cute. And then every Star Wars movie has sort of a dark, serious layer to it as well. So,
Well, I'll say this. Look, if you say we're getting into a prequel debate, but if you say Clone Wars was for kids, I would say Jar Jar Binks was for kids as well. And I think it was to bring Star Wars to a new generation, and I think that's kind of what they tried to do here, and they had no nuance in doing it.
Well, but okay, a couple things. Jar Jar, I actually thought Jar Jar. I remember when they introduced his opening scene. I thought, this is funny. Why are people complaining about this? Wait, heel versus babyface says we don't. Wait, I don't.
We don't what?
We don't what? What's the context? Give me some context. But back to back
to episode 7.
Let me
go ahead.
My prequels thought.
Yes.
In retrospect, looking back on the prequels, they've aged better. There are parts of it. Episode 1, most practical effects, most practical sets. Episode 1, there are many good things about it. Probably the prequels have the best lightsaber duels of all the Star Wars movies. And I would argue that the last third of episode 2, when we see what the Clone Wars is, and I remember the theater erupting in applause when you see this like sea of Jedi with lightsabers drawn, about to clash with an army of robots. Like, the theater went nuts. So there you go. But look, the thing is this, the prequels have aged well, and the generation that grew up that were kids when it came out really enjoyed it. I'll throw in a film recommendation, a movie called The Prequels Strike Back. It's another documentary I happen to be in, but I'm not. I'm in a lot of. I turn up like in a bunch of different places. But it's made by a kid who was young. He was single digit aged when the prequels came out. He's a kid from Austin, Texas, and he saw the prequels and loved the prequels. Then he got on the internet as a teenager. He was like 14, 15. He's reading the internet. Why do people not like the prequels? And he decided to make a movie that defended the prequels. It's a very good documentary, and it's a different point of view, and I appreciate that. Now, Az's comment, why do we care about Ahsoka? We don't, says heel versus babyface. Well, thank you, Az, for that comment. Yeah, unfortunately, they didn't. There's not sufficient backstory to make me care about these characters. There's a lot of reference to backstory that's in a cartoon show that I never watched. I did watch season 1 of Rebels, and certain episodes I'd check in on Clone Wars. I prefer the Gendy Tartakovsky 2D animated, just the hand-drawn animation. I really like that Clone Wars series. I didn't like it when they kind of moved to the sort of weird big heads, and it was a style of animation that felt a little weird. To each his own. And it just didn't resonate with me.
Look, I mean, to Az's comment, to me, the point, the biggest folly here was, not a lot of people saw Rebels and Clone Wars. People who saw it are going to hate me for saying that, but let's be real. Your numbers are small. You look at the season 1 premiere of Rebels, it was 3 million people on Disney XD. So it wasn't even on the Disney Channel. And to make a series like this, spend arguably $100 million for 3 million fans. Maybe let's say 5 million fans. 5 million fans. That's a monumental waste of time and money. And to create the show that is specifically for them, because those of us who don't have context, who have not seen those shows, this is how we react to what we're seeing, because we don't understand the context. We don't understand the backstory. And these characters are bland and inconsequential because we don't know anything about them. And yet it's written as if we should. And I don't know who in Disney, I do. Who in Disney would greenlight something like this, spend this amount of money, and think that it's going to be a success, and think that they're going to get a return on their money? And which is why Star Wars is dying, because it's losing money. And this is an example of why.
Well, I think the reason that the Disney Plus streaming service, I have my two favorite streaming services where I always find something to watch: Netflix and Max. If I had to cancel everything, I would keep those two only. But everything else, when it comes to like Disney Plus, nothing new that they're creating interests me. And secondly, the other thing about it is that everything that I want that's on the channel, I already own. I have Bambi, Alice in Wonder. I have them all on Blu-ray. I have Snow White on Blu-ray. I've got the documentary about the making of Snow White on DVD. I've got all the Disney stuff I want. It's like a shelf. It's all the classic animated films, all the Marvel phase 1, 2, and 3. And that's it. I'm good. That's all that it has. And I've got other little Disney stuff here and there too, but there's really nothing keeping me on there. As goes on to say, as I should just send as a link. Heel versus Babyface. The show hasn't provided any reason for us to care about these characters. That is 100% correct. And that is just like from the beginning, the first few. Now, this is the thing is, if you've watched Rebels and Clone Wars, I get it. But for the audience because I only really care about the movies. You know, if it happened, if there's a giant 7-foot rabbit in the, in the comic books, I'm going to say, well, that's nice. But unless I see it in the movies, it doesn't exist to me. But they really needed that. The thing is they needed some episodes to put it in context here. I'll say this. So let's go through real quick. We've had so many chat questions.
Let me just comment on that one last comment you made. But wouldn't it have been cool to see live action versions of the great moments of these characters from Rebels? You know, I mean, if you want to dig into those member berries, you know, that's what they should have done is take episode 1, or at least put out an hour-long documentary on these characters and the stories of Rebels, and do it live action. They could have done that. And that would have at least set a foundation for this series. We have no foundation. No foundation is being built. Nothing's being explained to us. And that's why people who didn't see the series don't like it. Right. Who haven't seen Rebels don't like the series.
Yeah, I mean, I look, I watched the first season of Rebels and I thought this is a show for little kids, and it's and that's okay. That's okay. Even look, there are age specific demographics where they go after certain types of shows. I'm okay with like Star Wars Legos existing as a show. So what? I won't watch it. I don't care, but that it exists is cool. It's entry level. It's fine. I don't mind. They even do this with toys, right? Like they've got the sort of little, you'll get like the little, whatever, like they're like little kid toys that are Star Trek or Star Wars. Then they've got your traditional action figures. Then they have Black Series. And then they've got the 1/6 scale, which are much more expensive. And then if you're like me, I've sort of graduated to the point where it's like, I don't want any of that crap because I don't have the room. What I like are prop replicas. I love prop replicas. That's kind of where my head is. I love having a prop replica. That's cool. I'm gonna stick with that. But you know, it's when I watch those shows first, because I gave them a chance, I just realized it's not for me. It's fine. I'll stick to the movies. If anything big happens, like there was an episode of the Genndy Tartakovsky Clone Wars show, the 2D animated, that was a direct prequel to the events of Revenge of the Sith. And I loved it. I thought it was a really good episode. But I felt that what he was going for was a much more adult vision. You know, people assume just because something is in animation form, it is for children. That's not true. I mean, I can tell you because I saw Howl's Moving Castle yesterday. But the opening of the show kind of told me where we're at. C-3PO makes a cameo, and they
Yeah.
and
Oh,
here's
3PO, 3PO. Oh my god.
here's the thing. Mon Mothma stops everything to basically say hello to Senator Leia Organa's toaster. My impression is that nobody treated droids with respect. That's like treating your iPhone. And a walking freaking iPhone walks in to disrupt the proceedings with a message from Princess Leia. It's basically Princess Leia sent a galactic text using C-3PO. And they give C-3PO, all this respect. The better way to play that scene would be to be annoyed at C-3PO. What is this droid interrupting our proceedings? And then to have a hologram of Leia Organa actually delivering a message instead of the way that they played it, which was, this is, Robert Meyer Burnett said this, and as I watched your review before this, and we're all quoting Robert Meyer Burnett. Star Wars isn't about anything. Star Wars is now just about Star Wars. And I even tweeted today something like, we're getting to the point where basically someone in Star Wars is just going to be seen watching Star Wars. And then somebody joked in the comments that when they remake Star Wars, on one of the view screens, they're going to be watching the old Star Wars. It's become about itself. It's not about anything. Epic Mike coming in hot. Agreed, Chris. Epic Mike co-signs everything I just said. Thank you, Epic Mike.
You know what? Here's what they should have done with 3PO. He should have come in, been so annoying that they shot his arm off and then attached a red one onto it. There you go.
There you go.
I know.
Well, there you go.
And then I would connect it because they're trying to make connections with the prequel or the sequels. That would have been great.
We got this opening scene with Hera, General Hera, being, disciplined. What's going on with that? C-3PO and a little Deus Ex Machina saves her, or actually Leia Organa saves her. We get Ahsoka going through with the Purgle, which I still think is just a dumb idea. I just think it's a dumb idea, which I would buy it in animation. I don't buy it in live action. It looks stupid. So there you go. Then you've got like the battle on the planet.
Oh, here, let me talk about Mon Mothma. Okay, so there's one thing that they're setting up, which I don't know if they're smart, if they did it because they're intelligent, they realize it's a great story idea, or if they just did it not knowing. But I saw this in The Mandalorian as well. But one thing that I find interesting is that the whole New Republic, it's a government so bogged down by bureaucracy, and it's so big that the government is so big that it's allowing a subversive element to infiltrate it from behind. And I think I'll get some heat for saying it. I think they're doing a good job portraying that, especially for Mandalorian, and this one is, that this government that everyone is following is so inept, it's so ineffective, it's so powerless that this is how Thrawn is going to get his forces in and to kind of undermine the New Republic from within. I mean, it feels like that could happen today. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but these are seeds I'm seeing planted throughout at least this Filoni verse. But part of me feels like he's not smart enough to have even picked up on that himself.
Well, and that's my other thing is, as we get into the show, Baylan Skoll is the best part of the show. And I think the way they're going, they're probably not going to kill off his character, and he'll have to be recast for the movie, or if there's a second season of Ahsoka. The other thing about this is Thrawn just seems not menacing. Is it just me? We haven't seen what makes them so afraid of him and what makes him so great. As yet, I have not seen it.
Yeah. Look,
if anything, he sent like these few resources down to the planet. What would have been a better take would be for him to be like, to underestimate them and to send off like, whatever. They're not gonna they're not gonna interrupt our plans. It's just like two people. You know what I mean? Like it would have just, there's so many different ways you could have played it, and it's all in the writing. It's all in the writing. I still don't think the actor that's playing him is that, I'm not sold. but I haven't
Yeah.
seen anything that's made this character menacing. Whereas from the opening scene of seeing Darth Vader, very, very menacing. From the
Let's
opening
say
scene,
this. Look, up until Avengers Endgame, we saw less of Thanos than we have of Thrawn at this point, and we already knew how threatening Thanos was.
right.
You know, we knew that when he finally made his appearance on, killing Loki, that we understood that this was a big deal, and this is why the universe is scared of him. We get nothing of that with Thrawn. All we are told is that he's a really bad guy, and that we should just accept it. And this is my whole problem with Star Wars, with Disney Star Wars, is they tell us here are the bad guys and here are the good guys. You should like them because they're good. You should like them because they're bad. You should like them or hate them because we told you you should. And that's bad storytelling.